Change is coming to the Sun Devils defense in 2023, and we're here to talk about it on this edition of the Locked On Sun Devils podcast.
Are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. As always, thank you guys for tuning in. Wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. Stay in touch with that content by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast as well at LO_Sun Devils. Now, there's been a lot going on in spring practices for the Sun Devils, and I've been doing my best to stay on top of the most amount that I can. Keep in mind that once everything is finished up, it's going to be a flurry of football content. I mean, I've got a lot planned for about 2 weeks from now. Once we finish the spring game, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, April 15th, there's going to be a lot of projection videos. There's going to be a lot of talking about the potential lineups and everything like that. There's going to be a lot more digesting than what I've been doing so far. What I've been focused on is staying on top of any major news stuff that's come out. But today's going to be a little bit different because I do want to spend some time talking about what we've seen in practice. But I want to specifically focus on one person in particular, and it's not a player. It's Brian Ward. For those of you who aren't in the loop yet, I'm a very big Brian Ward fan. I think that the attitude that he is bringing to this Sun Devils defense is going to be so important for the way that these guys are going to perform this upcoming season. There's a lot of change that is occurring to this defense. Last year alone, this is just off the top of my head, you're losing starters across the board. TJ Pasifea, Nesta Jade Silvera, Trevez Moore, Merlin Robertson, Kyle Sully, Connor Sully, Corey Bethley, Tamarcus Davis. There's losses at all three levels of the defense. There's depth that's gone. There's starters that's gone. There's guys that transferred out. There's a lot of change that's going to be on this defense. And this already wasn't necessarily the strongest unit of the team. There were good performances last year. Ro Torrance looks like he could become one of the best corners in the Pac-12. And BJ Green has shown flashes of being a very dominant pass rusher. But outside of those returning guys from last year who played significant time, there were definitely some question marks. Well, so far through practice, ASU's defense has held up its end of the its end of the bargain, and it's playing with some swagger. And these kids are out there strutting their stuff, talking their ish, and playing with an edge. And keep in mind, there's not necessarily a lot of like 5-star talent here. There's not a lot of guys that look like future first-round picks. These are guys that are just going out there every Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday and taking care of business. And some of them are dominating, and they do look like future game wreckers. And then there's other guys where it's like, all right, that was a really good play. He did that again. Like I saw him do that a couple days ago. Like there's so many guys to talk about here that I want to focus on that have really stood out to me throughout practice and have stood out to a lot of people throughout practice. But more than anything, I think that the biggest reason for this has to be Brian Ward and everything that he's bringing to the program right now. Brian Ward, for those of you who aren't completely in the loop with him, is the new defensive coordinator. He comes from Washington State University, where he coached a very, very stout defense for them a year ago. He's been a defensive coordinator for a little over 10 years now, starting at Drake and then going all over the place. Like I said, most recently at Washington State, and now looking like he's going to continue his his style of defense with Arizona State. And it looks like they're going to be making that transition rather quickly. This was not a good defense for Arizona State in 2022. There were good performances, but the product as a whole was very stale. It was boring. It was unoriginal, and it lacked the killer instinct that they need. This defense, so far in spring practice, looks like a completely different version of what we saw last year, and in all the best ways. They look like they're going to be playing a lot more fast, a lot more ferocious, a lot more attitude, passion, swagger to them. This is a good-looking defense right now. And there's guys, like I said, that are returning that look like stars. Ro Torrance and BJ Green in particular has stood out brighter than anybody else. There's other guys as well who have played very well. Chris Edmonds still looks really good. There's some transfers on the defensive backfield that are coming in. The linebackers look intriguing. The defensive line looks dominant. All in all, I think that this defense right now really is playing lights out. And if they can keep doing what they're doing throughout the final 2 weeks of spring practice, I think that there's plenty of reason here to get excited and get invested in this new defensive movement with Brian Ward. Real quick, want to talk to you guys about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use, and you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and three-strain. Plus, FanDuel lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. And back into our conversation now. Taking a look, I want to highlight some guys in particular because there's a lot, and we're going to kind of rapid fire here. I don't think there's been a positional group that has looked more dominant than the defensive line has throughout spring practice. And this isn't just a testament to Brian Ward, because Vince Amy, the defensive line coach and a former Arizona State Sun Devil back in the 90s, has these guys playing so well. They're very well coached. They know what they're doing. They're beating their assignment 90 to 95% of the time. I mean, it feels like this defensive line has just been the clear biggest winners in terms of like a positional group that has dominated spring practice the most. I think it's been the defensive line. I don't think it's been close. BJ Green, if we were keeping a running tally on sacks that he's had throughout training camp, spring practice, he's got to be close to 20 at this point. I'm not exaggerating. It feels like he gets 2 every practice. He is just knifing into the backfield. He's lean. He's down to 250 some odd pounds from the 275 he played at a year ago. He's quick. He's explosive. He looks like he is primed for his best season. Keep in mind, he has led the Sun Devils in sacks both seasons at Arizona State, 5 his freshman year, 2.5 last year. I feel like he could easily combine what he's done, double his total production, 7.5. I could totally see it. I think that this is potentially a double-digit sack guy the way he's playing right now. And he's got some good friends next to him. Clayton Smith, the incoming transfer from Oklahoma, a former highly recruited prospect out of high school. This dude has an insane physique to him, insane athleticism and physicality. And he shows it on the field. He's so quick. He's almost unguardable in practice right now. I feel like Arizona State hasn't had that true de facto pass rusher in quite a few years now. And I feel like Clayton Smith could be that guy. He looks like someone who's going to come in and be a 5-6 sack player from year one, potentially even better than that. The defensive interior has also been really impressive. CJ Fight in particular has really stood out to me and everybody else who's been watching practice. He looks like he could be a starter as a true freshman on the defensive line. Next to him, Robbie Harrison, the redshirt freshman who switched from 98, I think, to number 4, which actually looks pretty clean. And he's dominating. He looks really strong, really quick. He looks like Nesta. He looks like a carbon copy of Nesta. Those 4 alone make me look at this defensive line and get really, really excited about the potential that they have here. I think between Green, Smith, Fight, and Harrison, you have a really, really fun, young pass rush and overall defensive line play. But beyond them, Prince Dorbaugh and Ashley Williams have also looked very, very good. Ashley Williams is another intriguing piece to me. I'm curious to see how they're going to involve so many different guys on the defensive line. Garen Stansbury has looked good. I know that Anthony Cooper is still going to be involved as well. There's a lot to like here with the defensive line, but those guys in particular stand out. Linebacker, I think that we knew who the 3 linebackers were going to be throughout most of training camp. It was going to be Will Schaefer, who's returning from last year, James Joncom, who's returning from last year after transferring to Arizona State last year, and Travion Trey Brown from Washington State, playing under Brian Ward. I feel like that was a very easy projection for who the starting 3 linebackers are going to be for the Sun Devils, but it hasn't necessarily been like cut and dry, like, oh, the other guys haven't impressed or anything. They have. Crew Jackson has looked very, very well. And I think that he's got that blend of athleticism because he is that kind of linebacker safety hybrid to be able to line up as like that star linebacker for the Sun Devils and see what you can get out of him there. But between Schaefer, Joncom, and Brown, I feel pretty confident in that group. I think that that's about as good a group as you're going to get when you're replacing all 3 of your starters from last year. Defensive backs, there's a lot. I think that the secondary for the Sun Devils is going to be one of the biggest points of strength on the entire team. I think that it might not have as much like firepower as the defensive line, but I think there's a lot of depth here. And it starts with your starting 5, including the nickel. Ro Torrance, dominant. This dude is going to be one of the best corners in the Pac-12. Mark it, put it in pen, do whatever you got. This dude is good. This dude is certifiably good, future NFL player. This is a stud. Across from him, Ed Woods, also very good. Got better as the season went along last year. Should be able to translate just fine into being a starter once again. Jordan Clark, been good. Can't complain. Dude is back for his final season. Dude has NFL bloodlines. He's a nasty nickel corner. Like, he's not the biggest dude on the field, but he's still going to thump you. He's got his dad in him, and he's not afraid to hit, and he's got some ball hawking skills. Speaking of ball hawking skills, these safeties, man. Chris Edmonds last year led the team with 3 interceptions. I think he could do it again. He looks so smooth. He looks like a wide receiver out there playing in the defensive backfield. Like, he just skates around and looks so confident making reads and making plays. And then next to him, Xavier Alford, who's transferring from Texas. Wait, now I'm doubting myself. I'm pretty sure. Now I need to confirm. Xavier Alford is transferring, or is he USC? He's USC, excuse me. I think Shamar. No, I can't remember who I'm thinking of. But anyway, Xavier Alford is also looked really, really good. And he looks like he's got ball skills to incorporate as well and become a big-time playmaker for this defense. I'm not crazy. Alford did play at Texas in 2020, so I'm not totally crazy. But anyway, between those 5 alone, I feel really good about that secondary. And I feel like there's potential for these guys to be some of the better players in the conference in their positions, especially Torrance. I can't stop talking about Torrance. I refuse to stop talking about Torrance. The depth here looks good too. Shamari Simmons has really been coming on in the last couple of weeks, and he looks like he's about ready to completely take over a starting role on this defense. I don't know where you really line him up. I feel like he's more of a safety, but at the same time, when you play as hard as he's been playing and you have the turnover production that he does, he has 7 interceptions in his 2 years at Austin Peay, and he's been doing just about the same thing at Arizona State right now. He feels like your Corey Bethley from last year, where it's like you can't keep him off the field, even though You have so many guys that you're trying to get incorporated. Shamari Simmons should be one of those guys that you need to find a way to get him onto the field in different packages, or even finding a way to make him a starter for the team. He looks that good. Mason Williams, RJ Reagan, Isaiah Johnson, all guys that also looked very good, look like they're going to be very important depth pieces. Johnson is really interesting to me. I think he showed some potential last year during his, I believe he was a redshirt freshman last year. He might have just been a true freshman last year. But I think that there's some potential for him to continue growing, improving, and becoming a better overall player. He's showing that so far throughout camp, and I think that that trajectory is going to continue going very, very well for him. Real quick, want to make sure that you guys check out the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Isaac Shade and Andy Patton bring you everything you need to know on and off the court. Hear from big-name experts, coaches, players, and more throughout the college basketball landscape on Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you're getting your podcasts. With all of those guys in mind, and looking at what Brian Ward has accomplished already, there is so much potential here. And there's so much reason for excitement. I'm not saying this is going to be the best defense in the Pac-12, let alone in the country. But I do think this is going to be a much, much improved unit from last year. I think the confidence level that these guys are showing by itself is already so much stronger and more potent than what we saw a year ago. I feel like these guys at times played a little bit defeated last year. And these guys are looking to make enemies of their own teammates. I mean, they're not. That's not what I'm trying to say. But like the way that they play these games, it's like, or practices, they're not out there to make friends. They're out there to make plays. They're out there to embarrass you. And they're out there to put the highlight reel up so that people will click and they'll be like, holy cow, this ASU defense, they like to hit. They like to create turnovers. They like to get sacks. That's what they're doing. They're not out there on the practice field giving up on reps and taking plays off. These guys are playing hard to the whistle. They're doing great in individual drills. They look good. They look explosive. They look like they're ready to prove a lot of people wrong. And I think that this defense, thanks to Brian Ward in particular, is going to be a much improved unit from last year. I think they're going to be one of the strengths of the team, because you got to remember, this is a Sun Devils team that's going through a lot of transition right now. I still stand firm at my 4-8 record prediction. Maybe that'll change with months to go. But as of right now, this is still a team that's going to be hopefully competing in all 12 games, hopefully 13, fingers crossed. And they're going to be a team that you're not going to want to play. The defense is playing with that kind of energy right now, with that mentality of, you don't want to play us. Trust us. You don't want to go a full 60 minutes with this team. We will out physical you. We will out dominate you. We will outperform you. Right now, Brian Ward might outcoach you. He definitely has had the advantage throughout these practices. The offense has had some moments, and there have been some stellar plays. Jalen Conyers looks like an absolute monster. Xavier Guillory looks like a dynamic weapon. But the vast majority of practice, I feel like I'm sitting there watching a defense absolutely take over. The offense has had some great plays. The offense looks good. The defense just looks better. And I don't know if that's just because of how much change the offense is going through. And it's so early in the Kenny Dillingham era that this is just going to be an advantage for the defense. But right now, they are taking advantage of the situation that they're in. They're doing everything they need to be doing. And they look like the better, superior unit right now. As far as Arizona State Sun Devil fans need to be concerned, this defense looks better. And it looks like it's going to be fun. It looks like there's going to be quite a handful of players to get to know, not just for this year, but for the future. Like I said, some of these young guys like CJ Fight and Robbie Harrison on the defensive line, or Crew Jackson, or Isaiah Johnson. Like these are guys that are like no older than in their second or third year. Like there's time for these players to be around the program for a while. That's the other really exciting thing that I want to close on is this doesn't look like a 1-year defense. This looks like a defense that could bring back the vast majority of these guys for next year. I don't have them right in front of me, but BJ Green, Clayton Smith, CJ Fight, Robbie Harrison, Ro Torrance, Ed Woods, Xavier Alford, Crew Jackson, Ashley Williams, those guys that I just named for sure have at least one more year of eligibility. I'm not 100% on Schaefer, Joncum, Trey Brown, but there's a lot of guys who could be in the fixture for more than just one season here at Arizona State. And if that's the case, and if they do show a lot of growth in year one under Brian Ward, it's going to be really hard to not think that this can't be a dynamic defense in 2024 and moving forward. But as far as 2023 is concerned, this defense already looks better. And I got to thank Brian Ward for that. I really think that Brian Ward is already doing a magnificent job with everything that he's been putting out into the camp. I think these kids are buying into the energy. I think they're buying into the coaching staff as a whole. It's not just him. It's Coach Carrington. It's Coach Amy. It's everybody that's putting in the effort right now to change the culture, change the identity, change the mindset of this defense. It's working. Hopefully it continues to work because right now I'm buying in on the Sun Devils defense. I hope you guys do too. And I hope that you guys will tune in next time for the Locked On Sun Devils. Wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you get an update when we post new content. Stay in touch with that content by following me on Twitter. You can find me at Richie Bradshaw36, and you can find the podcast while you're there as well at LO_Sun Devils. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.